We got quite a few here this morning for our Bible study hour. We have all of our classes in here, our adult classes as well as middle school and up. And the reason for that is a very special occasion, and that special occasion is we have our missionary here with us today, Scott Shanahan. Scott and Rebecca and Violet are here with us, and we have come to know them and love them for the last several years, and they've been doing a great work in Italy. But there are a lot of people that are new, that are going to be new to Scott, and new faces, and so many of you don't know who he is. And so that's why whenever they come home on furlough, we like to have them come and give a report. So this morning, Brother Scott Shanahan is here to give a report about the work in Italy. Brother Scott.
Buongiorno a tutti. Good morning to everyone. So happy to be with you all this morning. I am just a little disheveled. We've been traveling a lot. We went from Italy to Massachusetts, where we got used to Eastern time, and then just as soon as we got used to that, we went to California, and then just as soon as we got used to Pacific time, we came here, and we're not used to this time. So if I fall asleep, just wake me up at the end of the presentation, and we'll be okay. All right, there are a lot of new faces, so I'm going to repeat some things that I may have gone over the last time we were here. So those of you who have old faces, just don't worry, there'll be some new stuff in just a few minutes. There are a lot of new faces and a couple of old ones. I won't point those out, though. Bob, I was not looking at you on purpose. That was just a coincidence. So about us, that's what we look like. Our names are Scott, Rebecca, and Violet Shanahan. We were missionaries for 12 years in Micronesia on the little island of Pohnpei. And in 2017, we moved to Galway, Ireland, where we had planned to work with a very small church there, just 2 members at the time, or 3 at the time we went there, but they did not let us stay. We did not get a visa. And then we heard about an opportunity in Italy where we could get a visa. And so we moved there in 2019, just about 3 years ago. So just all those places, that's maybe where Pohnpei is. It's very, 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 very small, so it's kind of hard to find. There is Galway, and then, of course, we now live in Florence. Now, when we moved to Galway, we had plans. We had big plans for the church there, and we got right to work, and in the 7 or 8 months we lived there, we had a baptism. The attendance increased from about 3 to over 20. And I'm often, when it comes to our work, I'm reminded of this verse in Acts chapter 16, verses 6 through 10, where the Bible says, now when they had gone through Phrygia and the region of Galatia, they were forbidden by the Holy Spirit to preach the word in Asia. After they had come to Mysia, they tried to go into Bithynia, but the Spirit did not permit them. And I always think about that with Galway. There's a great work to be done in Galway. In fact, in all of Ireland, there's only about 3 congregations of the Churches of Christ, maybe 4 or 5 at the most, but we were only ever familiar with the 3 that we knew about. And we thought, well, why would God not want us here? It was really upsetting. But we keep reading these verses, and then it says, so passing by Mysia, they came down to Troas, and a vision appeared to Paul in the night. A man of Macedonia stood and pleaded with them, saying, come over to Macedonia and help us. Now, after he had seen the vision, he waited a few years. No, immediately we sought to go to Macedonia, concluding that the Lord had called us to preach the gospel to them. And that's kind of the way we look at our ministry. We found this opportunity in Italy, and everything just worked out perfectly for us to go there. One of those things that worked out perfectly was our relationship with the Margaret Street Church of Christ. And we are so thankful to this congregation for sponsoring our work in Italy and basically making it possible. Without you all, it would not have been possible. So now we heard the Florence call, not the Macedonian call, really the Italian call. We get a little bit closer. There we are in Florence, right there in getting into northern Italy, but really central Italy. And we work not just with the Florence congregation, but also with the congregation in Pistoia and the congregation in Prato, smaller cities outside of Florence. Prato is about a 30-minute drive. Pistoia is about a 45-minute drive. And then we also work a lot with the church in Milan, which is a little bit further. It's about an hour and a half on the train or 3.5 hours by car, depending on which way you go. I'll talk about those congregations here in just a little while. Now, those of you who were here before know that we've also worked with the churches. Do I have a laser pointer on this, Troy? The big button in the middle, okay. We've also worked with churches in Rome and up here in Vicenza. I'll talk about them in a little bit. We actually have not been there, though, in either of those congregations since the last time we were here. Just has not worked out. Our schedules and their schedules have not worked out, but we are still working with them, and we'll talk more about that in a little while. So what do we do? Well, I preach in Florence, Prato, not Pisa, Pistoia, that should say. Sorry about that. Proofreading is your friend. Milan and Rome and Vicenza, but as I said, I have not done that recently. We do weekly Zoom Bible classes, especially for Milan, and then we do personal Bible studies. Here's Rebecca on a personal Bible study with a woman named Marina, who's actually Russian, but she's lived in Italy for years and years and years. And then we work very closely with the youth in Florence. I'll have more to say about that in just a few minutes. How do we do personal Bible studies? Most of what we do for personal Bible studies is we teach English through the Bible. And I do believe you all did that in Paraguay as well. It's a great way to get Bible studies. Now, one thing we do not do, and I feel like I say this all the time, we've been meeting a lot of people sort of out, not Christians, not even, believers, as we've been going around the States these last few weeks, and they ask us always, well, where do you live? We live in Florence, Italy. Well, you don't sound like you're Italian. I'm not. But, well, what do you do there? Well, we work with a ministry where we basically mostly teach English through the Bible. But what we do not do is say, hey, we have free English lessons. And people come in for the free English lessons and we say, okay, we're going to read the Bible. We don't do that. They are advertised as English through the Bible. We are asked all the time, can you teach me English but without the Bible? Or can you teach my children English but without the Bible? No. If you want the English lesson, you have to take the Bible with it. And that weeds out a lot of people who have zero interest in the Bible. You have to have some interest in the Bible to study with us. We also have traditional personal Bible studies, one-on-one studies for people who don't want to to learn English, or maybe they already speak it or they're not interested. I'll talk about those here in a little while. See, I like to keep you guys in suspense. Oh, he's going to talk about that in a little while. I can't wait. Hopefully that's the way you think about it. And we do those in person and on Zoom. We do a lot on Zoom. We have students in all of those places that are circled, up in Vicenza, which is near Venice. In Milan, we have some students. Down in Naples, I have we have a couple of students in Brindisi down their way in the south. And of course, in Florence, we have the majority of our students. Actually, all of Rebecca's students, I think, are in Florence. This is Gemma. She is a new student that you did not see the last time we were here. We've just recently started working with her. She is actually a member of the church, but she has not been to church in a long time because she was converted through the Boston movement. I did not know this, but there's a Boston movement church in Milan. I think that's pretty much the same as Crossroads, which you might be more familiar with Crossroads here in Florida. And so we've been working with her through that. We've had a lot of really good conversations. Now, she's very unusual for an Italian. I think she's like 28 or 29 years old, and she is married with a child. That is very unusual in Italy. I became a father for the first time when I was 39, and in the U.S., that's kind of old to be a first-time father. It's not, like if you get in the bigger cities, maybe not so much, but in Italy, that's perfectly normal. Rebecca, who is much younger than I am, I won't tell you how much younger than I am, but for the moms in Violet's class, she's among the youngest, not probably one of the youngest. So I was 39 when I became a father. Violet's 9. You can do the math on that one. Rebecca was, I guess she was 15 when she had Violet. I guess that's right. If I'm remembering her current age, right. Okay. This is Daniela. You did not see Daniela last year because she's a new student. She is in Vicenza, which is up there in that northeastern corner of Italy. She's a great student. We meet every Friday morning, and we always have good studies with her. And she's very interested, not only in English, she actually speaks English pretty well. Gemma back here speaks English just about perfectly, so this is more of a Bible study with her. And you can see I don't know how well you can see it, but see we have a Bible reading, and then we have a vocabulary, and then we usually do a grammar lesson, and then I do just a Bible lesson after that, okay? And again, so you have to be interested in the Bible to take these classes. If you are not interested at all, you would not want to be part of that. Here is Rebecca with one of her students. You may have seen her last year, Alice, and you're probably thinking, wow, I didn't know Italians looked like that. Neither one of those people is Italian. But I talked about this last year, but for some of the new faces, Alice is very interesting because she grew up in communist China. And when we first started studying with her, you might remember this, she could not pronounce the name. She saw the name Jesus in the Bible and had never heard that name before. And she has had, Rebecca has some really great studies with her. I think this has happened since the last time we were there. They were talking about, I have developed some new material for the English through the Bible classes where we start actually in Genesis and work our way through Jesus. And then in part 2, we get into the church. And they studied the flood. And Rebecca, and I'm going to say this wrong, so don't quote me on this because I can't ever remember exactly which word it is. The ancient, not the modern Chinese character, but the ancient Chinese character, it's either for flood or, I think it's for flood or for boat. I can't remember which one it is, okay? It is a combination of the number 8, people, the character for people, and I think it's for boat. It's the character for vessel and the character for flood. Combined mean boat in Chinese characters. Does that sound familiar to anybody here? So they studied Noah, the flood of Noah, and Rebecca told her that. And I think we had it printed out for her so she could read it. And she said, that just gave me, what do you call those? She said, how do you say that? And goosebumps, or goose pimples, some people call them. I had pimples when I was younger, so I call them goosebumps. I know what a pimple is, and that's not a pimple. Anyway, but this study continues to go well. And actually, just recently, a few weeks ago, Rebecca was talking about going to church. I can't remember the conversation, but Alice said, well, I need to come to church sometime. Now, she still hasn't, but we're still working on that, so be praying for her. This is Stefano, one of my students in Vicenza. This was taken when we still had to wear masks all the time, which we don't anymore, thankfully. At least I'm thankful for that. Maybe you're not. I don't know. But anyway, he's a great student. We have had some really, really good studies. He is very interested in the church. He has come to church with us when we've been in Vicenza, and we're still working with him. I want to say that when we lived in Micronesia, I mean, it was just, baptism, 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 baptism. It was just constant, like we were constantly in the water baptizing people. In Italy, it's not like that. It moves a lot slower. Italians are very slow to make that decision, okay? But when we had in Micronesia, we had baptism, 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 baptism. We also had falling away, falling away, falling away, okay? The people that take their time, generally speaking, are more likely to stay committed, okay? And one of the good indicators in my ministry, now this is not true in every case, in my ministry it has been the case that if somebody will come to worship with you before they become a Christian, and they'll come regularly, they are more likely to be committed. Whereas somebody who you're just studying with, but they never come to worship, and then they say, well, I want to be baptized, I want to become a Christian. In my ministry, it's been often the case that they don't remain faithful. So the fact that Stefano will come with us to worship is a good indicator. Again, he's not a Christian yet, and I don't know what will happen. I try never to predict anything like that because I've been wrong 100% of the time. When I've been studying with somebody and I say, oh, this person is going to become a Christian and they're going to be very faithful, 100% of the time that has been wrong. And a lot of times, this guy, he's just wasting my time. He'll become the most faithful Christian ever. So I am not a prophet, and that is, you should... you should believe that because there aren't any prophets today. So anyway, this is actually Stefano's sister. One of the things that happens when you're studying with people and you build a relationship with them and they talk to their family. I've got this guy that teaches me English, And Stefano's sister wanted to learn English as well through the Bible. And so we started working with her. This is Mario. Mario is a great student. Just recently, he's become very busy, so he's had to cancel a lot of our studies. We haven't studied in a little while, but with working with him, he's a really good student, and he is very interested in the Bible. His English level is very low, and bless his heart, he keeps asking me to help him prepare for job interviews because he's trying to get a job in the U.S., and it's just never going to happen with his level of English. But he keeps trying at that. However, one thing he's very interested in, he's got a ton of questions about the Bible. We very rarely get through our lessons because he just asks questions all the time about the Bible. And then his mom, who refuses to put the camera in a place where I can get a good screenshot of her, is also now has become a student as well. And she is also very interested. They're very interested in learning the Bible as well as English, which is what we want. And we have a lot of other students. This is Carlo. Carlo is one of our in-person students. Now, I told you about Carlo last time that I was here, but he, like Fabrizio, I haven't talked about Fabrizio. I'm going to talk to him in a minute. He, like Stefano, will come to church. And he actually kind of almost considers himself part of the group. Unfortunately, he just moved to Siena, which is about an hour away, hour and a half away from Florence, and there's no church there. Now, this shows that he actually didn't really understand several things. We had talked about baptism before. He has not done that. But when he was moving to Siena, he said, well, is there a Church of Christ I can go to in Siena? And that's awesome. Like, this is a guy who's not a Christian, but he wants to find the church in Siena. And I said, well, no, unfortunately, there's not. I called around and I looked around. And he said, well, maybe I'll be the first member of the Church of Christ in Siena. I said, well, you're not a member of the Church of Christ yet, but maybe one day. So keep Carlo in your prayers, and who knows, we might be able to plant the church in Siena. And again, God had closed those doors for Paul in different places and opened them in others, and maybe that's what's happening. I don't know. Again, I'm not a prophet. This is Fabrizio, who I wanted to mention. I'm going to talk more about him in just a little while. But last year, when I was here in Milton, I got a text from somebody in Florence, and they said, "Hey, Scott, there's a guy who came to the building this morning and was asking questions, and he wants to study the Bible, but he's not at all interested in learning English. Will you study with him?" And I said, "Okay, fine." No, I did not. I said, "Absolutely." And then he had gone away because all Italians go on vacation in July and August. So he couldn't start until September, which was fine because that's about the time we got back. And we started studying. Very few weeks that we have missed. I will talk more about him later. But he's been just a great student. And I'm more interested in students that just want to learn the Bible. I do the English through the Bible thing, but he's just been such a good student, and he is so interested in the Bible. Now, he's like most Italians, he is Catholic. I have never, now this is not to offend anybody who might be Catholic or might know Catholics. I don't know. I grew up Catholic. I have never met a Catholic who knew the Bible like him. And I've studied with like Catholic leaders. I don't think I've ever studied with a Catholic priest, but nobody. I mean, okay, let's look at Matthew. Is that in the front or the back? Where is it? No, he knows Scripture, and that is really awesome. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a little while. See, again, I'm trying to keep you anticipated here all the time. One of the things we've been really trying to work on is building relationships. Now, the Florence Church of Christ, this picture was actually taken before we lived in Florence. This is about the size of the congregation. Most Sundays we have about 20, at the most 25 people. Now, a good number of those are actually Americans, though, that live there. For the Italians, it's probably less than 10. Maybe 15 at the most, if they're all there. In Florence, it's kind of weird what's happened there. When we went to visit Florence and we asked, "Do you want us to come work with you?" We didn't want to just barge in on them. And they said, "Yes, we really want you to come and work here." But then when we got there, they kind of they kind of kept us at an arm's distance. It was really weird. And Florentines have a a reputation for being very closed. Everybody in Italy, they say, oh, you live in Florence. How do you like it? Oh, we love Florence. So yeah, we love Florence too. Then they ask, how do you like Florentines? And we're going to say, well, we love them. They say, well, do you find that they're kind of cold? Yes, they are. Well, they kept us at a distance, and I was constantly thinking, how can we build this relationship with them? How can we be more effective? I don't want to stay here if they're not going to. I don't have to be the leader. I don't even have to be a leader, but I have to feel like I have a ministry here. How can I do that? Well, in Florence, here's another picture of the church there. And again, most of the people in that picture are Americans. There are some American volunteers who come to Florence. You can see Carlo back there, though, by the way. Again, he was, and there's Fabrizio, coming to church every Sunday, basically. There's American volunteers that come in and out of Florence all the time, and they make up a good portion of the congregation. Anyway, so I was trying to think, how can I effectively minister to this group? Now, when I was here last time, I had a conversation with Casey. I think Casey is a wonderful youth minister. I told him, I said, Casey, if I had to come back to the States and the only ministry jobs available were youth ministry, I would apply at Chick-fil-A. I have zero interest in being a youth minister. But we have this group of kids, and there's just the four of them, and their siblings. There's two sets of siblings. So we have Deborah and John. They are a brother and sister, and then Luigi and one of Rebecca's students, whose name is Luigi? Eleonora. Okay. Eleanor, thank you. I don't think I ever would have come up with that. But she's actually one of Rebecca's students. She has become a Christian in the last year and a half or so. So we have these four kids, and nobody's doing anything with them. So I went to the congregation, and I said, would you mind if I started doing an activity with the youth once a month? And they said, wow, we would really love that. The parents were really excited about it. So, okay, so once a month, we're gonna do an activity. And this was in September. And I said, okay, so the first Sunday in October, we're gonna do an activity with the youth, and I'm gonna preach a lesson that's for everybody, but maybe a little bit more geared to the youth. And they said, okay, let's do that. And then, right after that, I preached that lesson. It went very well. We had an activity. I think it's in the next picture here. Yeah, we took them to lunch. We took a couple of other people with us because there's just the four of them. So we took a few other people with us. This is the 1950s American Diner, which is just a lot of fun. You can see the American flag there. It's got all like memorabilia from the 50s and stuff. The waitresses wear roller skates. This at one time was Violet's favorite restaurant, but she called it the 1519s American Diner. But anyway, we took them there. They thought that was wonderful. Then we did an escape room, and of course the Americans were holding the guns because that's the way we do. But they just loved it. We had a great time, and afterwards they were just going on and on and on and on and on about it. Okay, so the congregation then asked me, well, would you preach the first Sunday of every month? Before, there was kind of, it was hit or miss. I would volunteer. They would say, who can preach? We put out a schedule and the men rotate, and they'll say, well, who wants to preach this month, this week, this week, this week. But now, every first Sunday of the month, they've asked me to preach, which is awesome. And now they're starting to ask my opinion on things more often. Again, I don't want to be the leader. That would be unscriptural. I don't even need to be necessarily a leader. But I want to feel like I have a ministry. And because I started working with the kids, that has evolved into being more, having more, I want to say this correctly, having more influence, that's the word I'm looking for, with the congregation there in Florence. We meet once a month with the kids. We do more fun activities. I talked to them just recently about doing more spiritual activities. We're going to try to get together twice a month, once for something fun and once for a devotional. This was obviously at Christmas time. We did a little meal together and a white elephant, which they just thought was hilarious. They had never heard of that, and they were really confused. Well, like, who am I buying a gift for? It's like, just anybody. But who? Which anybody? Anybody! And that was, it was a lot of fun. At this Christmas party, if we're ever here when it's cold, Rebecca made this hot chocolate that I don't know what she put in this hot chocolate, but it was so good. And these kids just kept drinking that hot chocolate. So invite Rebecca, if we're here when it's cold, invite Rebecca to your house and ask her to bring that hot chocolate. You will not be disappointed. But this is our house, by the way. This picture over here, has nothing to do with our ministry. That is our landlord's grandfather. They thought we would want a portrait of their grandfather in our house. And we're afraid to move it because maybe, we don't believe in ghosts, but, just in case. No, just kidding. Here we are again. So that's the youth group. We invited some other members over, some of the American volunteers, and some of the younger members. This is Giacomo. He is about 30, I guess. There's Carlo again. This is Zach and Elise Kelly. They run this volunteer program that's over there, and they're newborn at the time. Anyway, so we're now, as a result of this, having more influence. We want not to just do fun things, though. Here we had them over for tacos, and then after we did this, we have what they call a dispensary. We would call it a pantry, and it was empty, basically. So we took the kids to our house for tacos, and then we went to a grocery store, and we said, okay, here's a list. Load up baskets, and then we went and we bought a bunch of stuff for the food pantry, and then they went and organized it all as a service project, okay? And that was great. They loved it. They said we want to do more stuff like this. We want to be involved. All of them except for John have been baptized. John is 15, and he's just not been baptized yet, but he's just not been ready. So keep him in your prayers. Keep all of them in your prayers. I took them bowling one Sunday, and if you've read the newsletter, you heard this, but the kids have actually taught me a lot about Italians and about Italy, and one thing that I learned on this day is they cannot bowl. They are so bad. Three of them combined, I outscored them. So I felt really, really good. Because these kids, so John and Eleonora, so John is back there, Eleonora's there, they're best friends, best of friends. And then Luigi and Deborah they're best friends. They say, yeah, we actually talk on the phone, we text each other every day, and they love it when we get together with them because that's basically the only time they get to spend together. And when I say they're best friends, I mean they just, I may as well be invisible. So the invisible man whooped them at bowling, which is good. We took them to kind of end the year, we took them to a little amusement park, which again, they loved, and they just had a great time. Eleonora is a violinist. So in Italy, they have different high schools. You basically declare a major for high school, so they have scientific, linguistic, classical, and musical. Then they have a sport one. They have a few other ones now. Those are the four that were the kind of traditional schools. And John and Eleonora go to music schools, and she's a violinist. And she was having a concert, and my family went and watched the concert. And her dad, and I'm not saying this to brag, okay, but her dad said, my son Luigi, we were talking the other day, and again, this is going to sound boastful, and I don't want it to, but he said to me, thank God for the Shanahans. He said, we've never had anything like this. And that, it just it made me chills. And he said, and I agree. He said, his dad, who's about my age, said, we're so thankful that you are here. So this was the best thing I could have done was start working with these kids. Now, if I had to come back to the States and the only job was in youth ministry, maybe I would take it. Okay, maybe. You better be as good as them. Okay, no. And you better let me win at bowling if we go bowling, okay? All right. Now, we've also been working on our relationships with Prato. I love coming to Prato and going to Prato, rather, and speaking, but I hate that I have to stand behind that stupid plexiglass thing. It's really ridiculous. I like to move around when I preach, and I can't because there I am stuck. Prato invited me to come and teach Bible class. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And I can preach those things. No, we don't want you to preach. We only want you to teach Bible class. Okay, that's kind of weird, but I'll do it, whatever you want me to do. So I would go and teach Bible class. And again, now Prato, they're not quite as cold as Florentines, but it was weird. They invited me to come and help them, but then they kind of kept me back. Very strange. I didn't get it. So we tried to start spending time with them and going to meals. And that's a pretty big bowl of pasta right there, okay? Don't worry, I didn't have to eat all of it. But, oh man, it is so good. And we started spending more and more time with them and eating with them. Here's two of the members. They're younger. Prato has no children, but they do have maybe 2 or 3 young couples. That is Maurizio and his wife, Belinda. She's actually from Honduras, but she's been in Italy since high school, I think. So we started trying to build relationships with them, spending time with them, eating with them. Italians love to eat. Violet, there's another couple, a family. I thought I had taken pictures of that eating at their house, this other family, but apparently I didn't because I can't find them. But Violet likes coming to this house. The other house she doesn't really love because they cook food she doesn't like. And the mother, who is really the grandmother, she's like 1,000 years old, but she looks 2,000. But they make this food that Violet doesn't like, and she'll just sit there and stare at Violet the whole time. Why doesn't she eat? You need to take her to the doctor. It's because your food doesn't taste good to her. She wants just pasta with oil on it. That's all she cares to eat. Anyway, but going and spending time with them and being with them has resulted in building those relationships and them inviting us in more and more. They invited us. They said, Scott, we have a pizza oven. So come one Friday night, you come and you eat with us. Pizza. I was like, okay, and I didn't expect much. Y'all, this pizza was incredible. This night, it was really, really cold outside, but this room was nice and warm because of that pizza oven. And there was just people everywhere just talking and just having fun. I remember just sitting there. And in Pohnpei, we would go to feasts, where you sit on the ground and eat with your hands. And I would sit there sometimes and say, I can't believe I'm here. And that night, I said, man, I cannot believe I'm here. This is so nice. After that, and there's Maurizio fixing some of the pizza. After that, they said, we want you to preach. You teach Bible class and you preach. And now I'm getting opportunities to preach there. At Pistoia, that hasn't been a problem. Right away, they took to us. Again, they're a little bit further outside of Florence. And so we haven't really had to work real hard on the relationship there. This is my best friend, Violet's Uncle Leonard. He's going to be here for worship. His son's girlfriend goes to Scenic Hills, so he went there for Bible class. A weird decision to me, but so when he gets here, pretend like I didn't say anything about him and just act like you don't know him, okay? But that's Leonard. He'll be here, Lord willing, for worship. He came to see us in Italy, came to Pistoia. They fell in love with him immediately, and it was his. I'm going to say his age because everybody thinks he's younger than me, and he's not. It was his 50th birthday, so we did a big feast for him. And it was just great. Again, just spending time with them and being with them. And it helps us to build that relationship. Now, I forgot to add the picture, but when we went to worship there that Sunday, Violet said, Daddy, what's Uncle, is it going to be in Italian? I was like, well, of course it is. It's always in Italian. She said, well, what's Uncle Leonard going to do? She said, he's not going to understand anything. I said, well, you can help him. She said, okay. And she sat next to him and translated the entire service for him. I couldn't believe it. It was incredible. I was preaching, and I would see her, every time I would say something, she would turn. And it was so amazing. This kid, I couldn't be, I don't like necessarily to use the word proud, but I couldn't be more proud. Just amazing what she's done over there. Anyway, with Milan, again, we haven't really had to work real hard on the relationship there. We didn't push our way in, but we went and visited with them. And I said, I'm in Florence. Anytime you want me to come and preach, I'll come and preach, basically. And they said, well, okay, we got to check this guy out. So I started teaching. They said, well, what you do is, will you teach our Tuesday night Bible class on Zoom? Sure, I'll do that. By the way, that lesson right there is the lesson you're going to hear in just a little while, but I will do it in English for you, okay? And so we started working with them, and man, we just love this congregation. It's a really diverse congregation. They have a lot of South Americans and Filipinos and Italians. And here we were again at a fellowship meal. I love this picture. This is a Filipino auntie. And she said to Violet, "Do you want some dessert?" And Violet said, "No, thank you." "Yeah, come on, have some dessert." "No, thank you." "Come on, you don't say no to a Filipina auntie, okay? You get dessert." And so Violet's up there getting her dessert that she didn't want. Here I am preaching in Milan. Now notice, this is something, again, just something that has developed in the last year or so. There I am behind the pulpit, and it's kind of set back from the congregation, and nobody sits in the front rows, so like they're really far away, like Bliss is right now, because she's at the back there. And because I was tied to my notes, I had to like constantly look at my notes. And then the last time I preached there, I was able to get down on the floor and get right in front of them and preach without notes, and that's just really made me happy. And I give God the glory for that. By the way, in Italian. It wouldn't be very impressive if I did that in English, but in Italian. Okay. This is Justina. She is Nigerian. She speaks Italian well, but she wanted to study the Bible in English. She lives in Milan, near Milan. Marco there called me up. "Hey, Scott, will you," again, building that relationship, will you study with her in English? She was not English through the Bible, just a Bible study. Yep. And she was added to the kingdom. Okay, so for our future plans, I'm running out of time because I wanted to leave time for questions, but maybe if you have questions, just see me individually. World Bible School, I don't know if you're familiar with them. They have people all over the world that are studying the Bible, just the Bible, but they only have it in English, Spanish, and French. And I have, these are my students through World Bible School there in Italy, and then I picked up a few in Ireland just for fun, and because I feel like that is very important because like I said, there's got to be something done over there. But I have several students that are in Italy through World Bible School. Most of them are foreigners. I think there's one or two Italians. One is an American girl that I'm studying with. She lives in Pisa. What we're doing, we're starting it in September. We're going to start translating it in Italian, and we're going to have an Italian World Bible School. That way, we can get more just Bible students, not necessarily English through the Bible students. Okay, I've got to go through this more quickly. Fabrizio, like I said, he came and wanted to study. He was like, "Yeah, can I learn?" As we were studying, he told me, "I've been to the Jehovah's Witnesses." He said, and they said Jesus is not the Son of God. I left them. He said, I went to the Assembly of God, and they were doing all kinds of weird things. I left them. He said, "I really feel at home here." We started studying. We study every week, every Thursday night. We study. He does not speak English, but we're able to study together in Italian. He learned what to do to be saved, but he was waiting, and then one day he said, "You know what?" He said, I'm ready," and he was baptized into Christ. And I said, "Wow, this is this is just God working, and God gave the increase." Now, I need to explain this picture. Because he made this decision in the middle of the night. It was cold. This was midnight one night, I think, midnight 1 in the morning, something like that. And he was like, "Well, I don't want to get my clothes all wet." So we had some clothes, like giveaway clothes, and we put on, and for some reason, he put shoes on. I don't know why. He wanted to wear shoes when he was baptized, but somebody said, well, he saved his soul and his souls. So, but Fabrizio has already been taking a leadership role in worship. He wants to preach. He said, I want to preach like you. I said, all right. So he will hopefully be the first student in the Italian Bible College, which we're going to start basically with him and teach him how to preach. Keep him in your prayers. Okay. If you would like to take a picture of that, this is our contact information. You can ask questions. This is obviously the address there for support is here. And then there's online giving. But then the best way to get in touch with me is through email, either one of these. Rebecca is on Facebook. The best way to talk to her is through Facebook Messenger. We love hearing from y'all. And we really appreciate getting messages, just reminding us that you're here and that you know we're there, okay? Now, if you do not get our newsletter, email me at either one of those email addresses and I'll make sure you get it, okay? And when you get it, you email me back and just say, hey, we're still out here at Margaret Street and, I'm one of the old faces, maybe. I don't know. Don't call yourself an old face. But we're here. Let us know what you're doing. Let us know what's going on here. We really like hearing from y'all. So let's make sure that we do that, if you don't mind, if it's not too much trouble, okay? And as always, we do appreciate your prayers, and we ask you to continue them. I want to thank you again for your attention. I want to thank you for making all that possible. Fabrizio and Justina, are on their way to heaven because of what you do. Okay? It's God that gave the increase, but He can't give increase if there's no planting and watering. And that's our responsibility. And we couldn't have planted or watered in Italy without you. So when you go to bed tonight, I want you to remember there's at least 2 souls in Italy. There's more that have been converted, but in the last year, that are on their way to heaven because of the work that the Margaret Street congregation, with God's grace, by God's grace, is doing. Thank you so much. I look forward to worshiping with you here in just a little while.